Greetings gamers, my name is Anto, and today I want to talk to you about the thing that I think has saved my current campaign. This video is sponsored by Tales of Fablecraft, more on that later. So my players are awful at taking notes, which means that it falls to me to be the designated note taker in addition to doing absolutely everything else that a GM needs to do. And over the last year, thanks to my workload and my health, I've really fallen off with note taking as well, and it has started to cause some real problems. I'm talking my players not sure what it is that they're doing, forgetting complete plot threads, having items that they have no idea what they are because they're homebrew items, and our Foundry server went down, so the description of those items were on the server but nowhere else, so the players are like, I don't know where this indecipherable treasure map leads us, and I'm like, I don't know either. And the whole thing had gotten to the point where it's actually starting to really quite stress me out in my prep for running games. So the solution? Do what I always do, I build a new template. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you want to get a ton of other helpful GM tips just like this one, make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out some of my other videos. Now this is actually based on one that I use for my in-person sessions that I run, and I talked about that in my video on my GM binder up here, but I found that one to be really beneficial and to be really good for keeping notes, partially because I was handing it to the players to do at the end of each session, which goes a long way, but also because it asks some direct questions, and also this new template has the session planning and the note-taking combined into one sheet. You might ask yourself, why bother combining those two things? And in my experience, having used this system for a little while now, combining the planning and the actual note-taking means that I'm not flipping between pages super often. All of the information I realistically need to run the session, sans information about the world, is right there on one sheet. And because I run most of my games digitally, I can really leverage linked pages to make this much more powerful than it otherwise would be, and we'll talk about that when I give you the little tour. But it's really the questions at the end of this that are the secret sauce. Like I said, they were on my physical sheets that I used in my GM binder, and I found them to be super useful for note-taking, so I've ported them just directly into this template as well. And those questions are, where did we go? What did we do? Who did we meet? What did we find or learn? And what's our next goal? 5 pretty simple questions, but under those questions, I can cover everything that happens in a session in bullet point form, so that when I look back at my notes, I actually know what has happened in a session, and I know where everything is, and I also have a direction for where to go next. That last question, that what is our next goal, that's as much for me, the GM, as it is for the players. What I'll do a lot of the time is I will fill in these questions as we're going through the session. So every time the players go to a new location, I'll mark it down as a bullet point in the where did we go question. And doing that with every location change means that at the end of the session, when I look at what did we do, I can just look at the locations and think, right, what happened in each of these places? And it makes the process just so much easier. If you are running this in person, I highly encourage you just give your players this sheet with these questions and be like, you fill it out. So I'm going to show you how I use this in practice, as well as give you a tour of the blank templates. But before we do that, I want to talk about today's sponsor. I'm always on the lookout for new tools, new VTT options, and new games to try out, which is why I'm really pleased that today's video is sponsored by Tales of Fablecraft, because it's all of those things in one. Tales of Fablecraft is a new TTRPG that's built specifically for virtual tabletop play. It's a simple, easy to learn D6 based fantasy system set in the world of Mithras. It's currently available to pick up for free on Steam, is available on Windows, macOS, and iPad, and is getting full mobile support planned for next year. The core system itself is really easy to pick up and learn, making it great for introducing brand new folks or kids to TTRPGs, especially if you're trying to convince some of your video game playing friends to try TTRPGs with you. The custom VTT engine that Tales of Fablecraft is built on is visually really impressive. It's not overloaded with features or options, but the UI is really intuitive, and if you've ever played a CRPG, you'll get to grips with how to navigate the interface almost immediately. There's also built-in text, voice, and video chat, so you can host your entire session within Tales of Fablecraft, and they have a growing slate of homebrew tools to help you craft your own adventures in the world of Mithras. This week also sees the release of their latest premium adventure model, Once Upon a Wildwood. Break the curse, save the forest, live happily ever after. When an evil wizard inflicts a curse upon Grimseren Wildwood, it's up to the party to break the spell. Expect the unexpected in this whimsical but deadly fairy tale adventure. This premium adventure model is designed for at least 5 sessions of play and comes complete with new animated environments, battle maps, NPCs, monsters, music, and more, and is designed to be run with basically zero prep from the GM, just like all Tales of Fablecraft modules. If you're looking for a purpose-built VTT experience with gorgeous visuals and sound and want to lose yourself for a few hours in a bright, hope-filled fantasy world, check out Tales of Fablecraft using the link below, and thanks again to Riftweaver for supporting the channel. Okay, so let's talk about the templates. Here I am in a Legend Keeper, which is what I use to keep this digitally. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to the Legend Keeper file. If you're not using Legend Keeper, never fear, we're also going to talk about some PDFs that I've made. They'll be linked down below as well. So no matter how you run your games, there'll be something for you down in the description below. So starting off right at the top, we've got just basic bookkeeping information. What is the session date and what players were present? I use this because sometimes over the course of a 3-year campaign, you can start to get really muddy on some of the details, such as when did this thing happen in real time and which players were there to witness an event firsthand versus had it told to them in recaps or have heard it relayed to them by the other players so many times that they start to feel like they're there. And this can just be really useful for you as the GM to go, right, okay, I know that these characters witnessed this event and that is important that this other character didn't for X reason. Then the very first thing that I ask myself is, who is getting a hero moment this week? This is something that I've started doing really recently, really focusing in to say at least one player needs to get a really focused spotlight moment in each session. This ties to a lot of the other elements of the sheet, but it's a really good way to make sure that you're always being mindful that every single player is getting some focus and attention. Then we come to the actual planning stage. No plan survives contact with the players, so I keep my plans very loose, very vague, very bullet point driven. So in the planning section, it will just be a point-by-point list of the things I expect them to do this session. So arrive in the town, go to the shop, go to see X, do Y. But then beneath that, I keep a section for critical info. This is anything that absolutely has to be kind of divulged to the players during this session. So this might be lore information, this might be character information. It might not be anything in game at all. It might be player related, and I might need to be like, make sure this player updates their spells because we've gotten them a little bit wrong this session, or make sure we level up this player who was absent last week before we start play, or make sure to ask the players to stop leaving dirty Cheeto crumbs all over the couch. You know, anything that you want to make sure that you really want to get across this session. Then we have key NPCs. So this is anyone that I think that the players are most likely to meet during this session. And then loot or rewards. And I just give a list of the things that I expect them to find. And to populate this, I use the following section. This is 3 linked articles. So this is utilizing Legend Keeper's linked pages ability. And for this, I use the items the party want page. So I've asked all my players to give me a list of magic items that they're interested in finding or buying or otherwise acquiring out in the world. And I just keep those in little drop-down lists on a separate page. So when it comes to making the rewards for a session, I can look at each of those and go, do any of those fit to the theme of treasure that would be awarded? So let's say they go in and they're fighting something that is poisonous. Well, I know that the party rogue wants some special poisons, so can I tie those two things together? And I found this to be a really useful way of directing my attention when it comes to offering rewards, rather than just going purely random or sitting there with no idea what I want to do. Then I have a linked page with player information. This is broadly just information on the player's backstory, information on their mechanical background. We're still playing 2014 5th edition, so backgrounds have features. And being able to look and see those features at a glance means that when I'm doing prep, I can go, oh, is there any way I can incorporate these things? Let's say the players are going to visit a church. Well, I can draw upon that player who's got the acolyte background, and they'll have some ability to go in and have a little special moment, even if it isn't the big hero moment of the session. And then the ongoing threads page is just a place for me to keep all of the ongoing plot threads that they've acquired. So I keep a note of what the overall plot thread is, what player character it's most closely associated to, or if it's an item or something, what player is carrying that thing, and then just some notes about where I see that broad plot progressing in the future. This has been one of the most useful things because previously, because my players take so few notes and my own note taking had really fallen off, a lot of these plot threads had been started and then just kind of forgotten about into the ether because no one had written them down anywhere, which means that the players were carrying around important items or had made contacts that they had forgotten about or that had never come up again. So now, anytime I struggle to think of, oh, what do I do this session? Or what should the broad plan be for this session? I can just open the ongoing threads list and pick one of those and be like, right, we're going to develop this plot this week or that plot. And then we have the questions, where did we go? What did we do? Who did we meet? What did we find or learn? What's our next goal? And in that next goal, I have a page, tasks for next session, where I just make a bullet list of the things that I need to do as the Dungeon Master before the next session starts. Then if we jump over to Affinity Publisher, you can see the physical or PDF, the print version of this session planner. All of the same core information, just presented in a slightly different way. So the session number and date, the title, which players are present, who's getting a hero moment, what's the critical info, some space for planning NPCs and rewards, and then our 5 questions down at the bottom. And what I'll do is I will print this out, fill it in for my session planning, and then keep this behind my GM screen during the session to fill in those 5 questions with bullet points as we're going through the process. If you do want to use a physical GM binder to keep track of all this, I've also made an ongoing plot threads page. This is just somewhere for you to keep the plot, the key location, the spotlight hero, and some notes on it, just really simple, as well as a magic item tracker for the item, the rarity, and the character. The tracker that you get in the new DMG is great, but it doesn't allow you to list what the actual items are, whereas this does. So you can list in your rarity. You can use the 2 in combination to get an idea of how many of each rarity you should be given at each tier, but this allows you to look at a glance and see, right, okay, what the item is and who has it, which can be really important sometimes. And then finally, just a simple items the party wants. So this is something that I would just hand out to the players and make them write a wish list of items that they're interested in, and then I can refer back to that. So let's dive into an actual example that I used for my last session. I'll show you how I use this in play. So this is the planning and notes for Adventure 67 of my current campaign, Arrival in Mornburg. So this is the session we played a couple of weeks ago, and we'll go through and you can see how I use this in practice. So this top section, again, this is the planning section. So this is done before the session starts, and then the questions are what I fill in during the session. So our hero moment is going to be Russell, our party cleric. He's going to be completing the mission set out for him by his god. So that's going to give him a spotlight moment. And then planning, they're going to arrive in the city, do some shopping, maybe get a quest from a shopkeeper that has a secret quest, break into the Royal Observatory to swap out the focus lens. This is the kind of tricksy quest they've been given by the trickster god, and then they discover the location of the magic item that is the reward for doing that. Then in the critical information, just a note for me to level up the wizard. The wizard didn't actually end up being here for this session, so this is something that will get bumped to the next session. Then for NPCs, you can see there's only 2 NPCs that are named for this session, very light on the prep, because I knew that the players wanted to go and do some shopping, and I've played with this group for long enough. I know that our shopping sessions tend to run long because they like to look in every little nook and cranny of a magic item shop and speak to the proprietors for quite a long time. So I knew that that would take up a lot of the session. So we have the owner of the magic item shop and then an occultist. So the 2 main people that they went to see. Then in terms of the loot, we've got the Horn of the Handsome God, which is the reward they're going to get for playing the trick in this Royal Observatory. And then the Ring of Regeneration as a potential quest reward for doing something for the magic item shop owner, which they ended up agreeing to do. Then we have our 5 questions. So these are the notes that I kept during play. So where did they go? They went to Mornburg, which is the city they are in. What did they do? They arrived. They went to meet the occultist. They went to the magic item shop. They went to the observatory to swap out the lens. They got a bunch of gifts as a reward from the cleric's god, including an outfit and some masquerade invites. And then finally, the sorcerer fabricated a platinum scale and then did some other stuff as well. Who did they meet? They met the owner of the magic item shop, the owner of the occultist shop, and then a scientist at the observatory. What did they learn? They learned the location of the item that was a quest reward for what they were doing. They learned that the rings that one of the characters is carrying may be tied to the first vampires, and they learned a whole bunch of lore related to those. And then they also learned the location of an ancient nightmare dragon from this occultist. So this is something that I do fairly often. I've talked about it before. I like to seed other adventures with my players and then let them choose if they want to go and pursue it. So this is essentially just a quest marker that's appeared on their map saying Nightmare Dragon here. They can choose to go and do something with that if they want in the future, but it has no bearing on the current plot. And then their tasks for next session, I need to tell them what the indecipherable map that they've had for some time says, because as I said at the start, that information got lost among the kind of degradation of my notes, and I've finally figured out what it says. And then they're going to go and crash the masquerade ball. So when I come to do my prep for this session, I will use those 2 pieces of information to build out the template for this session. And that is how I've been keeping notes for the last couple of months now, and it has been so much nicer and so useful to actually be able to look at my notes and understand what is going on without having to take super detailed notes at the time. Having those question frameworks and those boxes to just fill in makes such a world of difference. I'd love to know how you take notes down in the comments below. If you want to keep watching, check out this video where I talk about my in-person GM binder. But until next time, happy gaming.